and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. I was diagnosed with PCOS at age 16. I was immediately put on birth control and told nothing else except to come back when I wanted to get pregnant. As I moved through my fertility journey, I still was taught nothing about the condition besides how it can affect my periods and my fertility. I'm 37 now, and in the past couple of years, it's really the first time that I truly started to learn about all the other ways in which PCOS can affect me. And I know I'm not alone in this either. So many people with PCOS are told they just need to lose weight and it will solve their problems, or told that their weight caused their PCOS, that they need to exercise more, eat less, that they'll never be able to get pregnant or bring a baby home. Basically, many are blamed for the condition as if we were the one that caused it in the first place. Because of all of these misconceptions and how many of us are dealing with this, I wanted to do an episode focused solely on PCOS. Today, I am talking with Emily about all things PCOS. She shares about her experience being diagnosed, living with the condition, and how she took control of her PCOS instead of letting it control her. Hello, everyone. Today, I am here with Emily. Emily, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. So my name is Emily Campanella. I am an online boutique owner in the social work space. So I do a lot of work around how women feel in their bodies and how it feels when they get dressed up in the morning, and that push to find things that bring ourselves joy. So that turned into a whole other things with coaching and helping people start small businesses and all kinds of stuff. But I think it's always led me back to the conversations that women don't know how to have. And one of those conversations that I'm super stoked about to have with you today is all about polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, as many people know of it. And I think it's one of those things that people don't know how to talk about sometimes. And I think we've learned that from the kind of conversations we've had with our medical professionals in a lot of cases. So excited to have this convo with you today.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on and being willing to talk about it. I know, with some people, it's kind of embarrassing almost to have this condition, even though it's so common. So many people have it. And I feel like doctors just think of it only in terms of fertility and trying to get pregnant. And they don't think about it in terms of all the other ways that it affects our lives. Have you had that experience?
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I think what you just said, we're embarrassed, but so many, I believe I saw a stat that's 1 in 10 women. There's so many of us, and then we've almost been trained not to have this conversation. And like I said, I feel like that comes from a lot of the experiences we had by finding out that we had PCOS. I know for me, and I don't know if I've shared this with you, but I can share it with your listeners. I was 12 years old. I went to the doctor, and because I had my period, I got my period at 9. And I went to the doctor, and they were like, you have polycystic ovarian syndrome. My mom went, what is that? Because she didn't have it. And it's not a huge deal. She probably won't be able to have kids. They just dropped that on me. I was 12 years old.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
I was crushed. And I think for a really long time, at 12 and 13, I didn't know how to process this. But as I got older, it became this weight that I didn't know how to talk about. And we know now that yes, it can be more difficult for women who have PCOS to get pregnant, but there's so much more support and help out there. So I just think, like you mentioned, the way that it's framed, the way that it's discussed across the board, not only affects the way that we show up and talk about and feel about our bodies, but it also is this little secret that we feel like we have to keep.
Yes, it's exactly that. And man, I'm still angry about the comment the doctor made.
It took me I just turned 30 last month. It took me years to be No, actually, I do have options. No, actually, if I decide I want to be a mom, which I have since I was a little girl, and that has stayed pretty consistent in my life, that is an option for me. And no one person gets to tell me that's never going to happen.
Especially at 12. I'm
Yeah,
sorry, at
that's the
12.
part. That's the part. Like, absolutely. I mean, we could have a whole episode on the trauma from that. You know what I mean? Because it was just like, okay, have a nice day. Go pay your copay. And I was like, what? Like,
Yeah, it's like they kind of just drop that diagnosis on you and then don't tell you anything else. Like I was diagnosed at 16 and they're basically like, here's some birth control, it'll regulate your periods and come back when you want to get pregnant. That's it.
even my mom, she was like, I don't know if I want to put my daughter on birth control at 12. And they were like, it's your only option. And I was like, ugh, like the things we learn as we get older. And we've had that conversation recently. And she's like, I was so torn, but being told by your doctor that you could do more harm by not, she was like, I did what I was told. But now I'm almost a little angry because I feel like I should have had other options. And I was like, you're not wrong, mom. You're not wrong.
Right. And I mean, yeah, they do the best they can because the doctor tells them, I think my mom kind of struggled with the same thing. I mean, I was a little bit older, I was 16, but still, she's like, is this the right thing to do? Like, but when your doctor says this is what you do for this, then they're like, okay, well, I want to do what's best for my daughter. So let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a hard place to fall. And I think even the women who have been diagnosed as adults, it's a same very difficult conversation decision to make. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I found this a few years ago and it stuck with me. I think it's around just under 40% of PCOS women have depression and 42% of women have anxiety.
I'm one
So,
of those with anxiety.
hey, me too. You know what I mean? Like, so we, like you said earlier, we treat PCOS as solely a fertility issue, but that's not all that's happening. And now that you're struggling emotionally with depression, anxiety, just fear of this diagnosis, being able to make those decisions, plus all of the other side effects you have, can be almost crippling in some ways.
It can. And as I've gotten older and done my own research and learned more about it, I've learned that so many of the things I deal with on a daily basis are related to it.
Isn't
And
that
I
crazy?
never knew.
To this day, I'm still finding, literally yesterday, I was looking, oh my gosh, I'm so hot at night all the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a PCOS symptom. Like it just,
And it's
know what
stuff
I
you
mean?
wouldn't
Like,
even think.
yeah, because you've had them for years. You're like, oh, this is just me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mine was I went to the doctor for a physical and I'm like, I have high cholesterol. And I'm like, why do I have high cholesterol? And then I look into it more and it's like people at PCOS are more at risk for being, high cholesterol. And I'm like, well, this would have been nice information to know.
I was gonna say, I really wish, and like that's the stuff where they're like, just take birth control, come back when you want to get pregnant. That's the stuff. Like you'd think there'd be a pamphlet, at least at the barest of bare minimums, like, hey, these are some of the things you might expect. These could be some symptoms of some things that could be going on.
Yeah. I feel like doctors get like a small paragraph in their textbook about PCOS means no periods and give them birth control and move on. And that's it.
Yeah, I felt the same way very, very many times. And I think for me, I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I mean, I've been to endocrinologists. I've across the board, I've been to so many doctors because for me, like in my gut, I could feel like coming back when I want to get pregnant, there's prep work that I know that could be done before I get to that point. And I want to know what those things are. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I kept asking the questions and I just kept getting hit with doctors who were like, well, you just need to lose weight. You just need to lose weight. I even had a doctor tell me that my PCOS was caused by my obesity. And I was like, that's not science, ma'am. I'm going to need you to,
Oh my gosh.
I've never had a white coat. That's not real science.
You're like,
And
I
I
know
think
that for a fact. Please no.
like the what the internet has taught me, I know that's not science. Like, and I think it's truly just because, like you said, like it's not a big topic that's being talked about in their education. So they only know what they know.
Right. I mean, in some aspects, like I don't blame the doctors because I know they're not
taught it, and I know they can't know everything about
Yeah.
everything, but
I think
if they could just do a little more, that would be nice. Like after I gave birth to my third child, I went back to the doctor and they were asking me about what I'm going to do for birth control, that kind of thing. And I was like, well, I don't want to go on hormonal birth control because that's not good for PCOS.
yeah.
And she argued with me about it, like, well, no, it is good for PCOS because it gives you a cycle that you wouldn't have. And I was just like, okay, I'll think about it. But
Yeah.
really, it's like, no.
I know. And I think, especially with statistics like 1 in 10 women, feels like it needs to take a priority. It
It
feels like
does.
now we're at a point like I can't change what happened in the past, but I think now, especially with I see more nutritionists popping up really with the education. I just worked with someone who was absolutely incredible, and I can give you her handle because she is just fantastic. Her name is Mackenzie Caldwell, and she runs a company called, well, her Instagram handle is like fertility prenatal dietitian. So she works specifically with women who have PCOS, who are trying to get pregnant, who are pregnant, and really helping with their nutritional and like healing our body from the inside out kind of feels. It's her company's called Feed Your Zest, which I absolutely love. That's so cute.
I love that.
She was the first person I had a conversation with that was like, no, we actually can eat all the things and we can find balance and we can lean into foods that particularly help hormone balance. And we're going to eat what we want and pair with what we need. And we're actually not going to add more stress to our lives with being mean to ourselves about food, because the worst thing you need for PCOS is more stress. The worst thing you need for your pregnancy is more stress.
Yes.
And it was the first time I had ever been talked to like that. Like my PCOS symptoms weren't something I did wrong, but actually something that's happening to me. And we can help counteract those things. And we're never going to be perfect every day. And that doesn't make us any less of a human being.
Yes, I love that. I mean, because you look up, how diet is very effective for PCOS.
Mhm.
I've learned that now. Um, but yeah, when you look at like PCOS diet, it's like it's all the things you can't have. No alcohol, no caffeine, no sugar, no dairy, no gluten. And I'm like, well, what can you eat?
And you know what? A lot of that data has already been debunked at this point, but we still have people out there pushing that because yes, you can't have a full diet, only those things. But I mean, I remember one of my first names with him, she was like, "Do you know that I have multiple women who have had a little bit of Haagen-Dazs vanilla at night before bed, and it because that had high protein." She's like, "You know that it helped balance their sugar and it helped with their protein, and it brought them so much joy, so it lowered all their anxiety, but also helped their body." And they were doing daily blood checks. They're like, it actually balanced their blood sugar. It depends on what your body needs. She was like, so we just punish ourselves. She was like, it's not fixing the problem. And I was like,
Yeah,
you're
that's
not.
another thing they don't tell you is about the cortisol levels and the stress that we have. So, we could be doing the wrong type of exercise. We could be, just doing all these things that we think we're supposed to do, but they're the wrong things completely for PCOS.
Yep. And I think it's hard because you have so many people out there. I mean, you Google PCOS and you can read an article and be like, this is exactly what you do. And then you click the next article and they're telling you the exact opposite. And you're like, well, who do I trust?
Yeah, it's hard. And then you obviously can't trust the doctors.
I
So,
know.
it's like,
I've had many a cry over that. I've had many a cry because it just felt like I was ready to do the things and try, and I didn't have the pieces in my surrounding to be able to make that change possible.
mhm.
And I guarantee you have your PCOS listeners are going to go, yeah, I felt that way. Because I found the more conversations I have about this, the more women who feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
And I think it even goes back to, I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with someone. We all know that hair growth here, that can be very common with PCOS. How many shows and movies did we see growing up where a lot of the female villains, or a female in a show, she was this big, giant, tall, you could see that she had 5 o'clock shadow. It was showed to us in a way that like women can't look that way, that it's wrong, it's unattractive. So then when you start to have these symptoms, like growing hair here and losing hair here, emotionally, you feel unattractive. You feel unworthy. You feel like your body is betraying you. So there's so many external things too that you're trying to navigate as well, just based on things that we've seen as we aged.
And so then it's really no surprise that so many deal with depression and anxiety because of all of these things that, these external things that are coming at us that we may not even realize, that we're feeling that way.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think for me, because we've talked so much about the negative, so I want to make sure people are like, this is a total doubter, because it is hard, and I want to acknowledge that. But I think too, for me, what really helped was, one, finding someone who could truly support me in my journey. And the fact that I was allowed to stop punishing myself with food and exercise, I feel healthier. I have less brain fog. I've had weight fall off without even trying. I mean, I've been a yo-yo dieter my whole life. You know what I mean? So like that, having someone who could support me and be like, no, I get PCOS. I've studied this. We can work together and find a happy medium. So you're not dieting, you're actually just living your life, and you're actually fueling your body. And we exercise. I actually call exercise physical self-care now.
I like that.
I feel like exercise in my brain became this really negative thing. But physical self-care, I go out for a walk, I do 30 minutes of exercise, I can think clear. I feel better about myself. I've accomplished something first thing in the day. So we had to make that switch with some language. But it was also just finding community of other women who were experiencing the same thing, but really specifically were looking to try to not just like wallow in the hard, but find positivity and goodness in moving forward.
I think that's an excellent point. PCOS doesn't have to be, the end of everything. Like, it's not. Yes, there are things we have to deal with that maybe other people don't have to deal with. But, I remind myself, everybody's dealing with something. This is just the thing that I was given to deal with. So
yes,
I think you're absolutely right that we can learn to find ways to manage our symptoms and, still live a happy life. It doesn't mean we can't be happy,
Absolutely. I think, like you're saying, we can have all the things. You know what I mean? And I've had the conversation with my partner too. Like, say that doctor when I was 12 is right, and I'm not able to get pregnant. There are other ways for me to have family, and I'm going to be fulfilled in whatever ways in the decisions that we make. And we're going to take it one step at a time and not worry about things that aren't here at this moment.
I think that's a great way to look at it, and, to not let it define you.
Absolutely. Because it's one of the things that are happening to me, but it's not my personality.
Yes. That is absolutely true. I feel like, sometimes some diagnoses, some things like that is exactly what it becomes. You become all about that diagnosis. And I know some are worse than others, depending, but yeah, I think it's important to not let that be like your only driving force is dealing with this thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I think like most things in our lives, anything that we are having to deal with, right? We figure out it ebbs and flows, and I view life as we're constantly in motion, right? So we're going to be a little over here, and then we're going to be a little over there, and we're dealing with a little bit of that, and then we're over here. And yeah, things are going to sprinkle in and pop up, but overall, if I know that I show up every day as the best version of myself for that day, if I treat people with kindness, if I love my body, even on the days that I don't really want to like it, I'm going to be all right. We're going to figure it out. And I think, especially with the anxiety and depression piece, I know that can be really heavy for some people on some days. And I know that I have been there before myself, but I know each morning if I open my eyes and woke up, I have another chance to do it again. And we're going to figure it out.
Yeah. It's crazy to me that, I've dealt with anxiety pretty much my whole life and just never knew that it was related. I just thought it was something I dealt with. I'm like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I dealing with this? And the other thing that you mentioned earlier that, I think is really common with PCOS is, the weight issue and how so many doctors think you just need to lose weight and it'll cure your PCOS, or you just need to, it's all like weight based. And that has, I mean, that's just a symptom of it. It's not the cause of it. Like you said, but it's just, I feel like that adds another layer to the whole shame of having PCOS, is having to deal with the weight issues.
Yep. I probably 2, 3 years ago, I had a doctor be like, well, we'll write down what you eat every day. And I did. And they were like, no, like you scared. I was like, no, this is what I eat in a day. Cause I think they just assumed that I lived on just pure trash food. Like I was living it all the time. And I was like, no, vegetables, fruits every meal, like healthy protein, shopping the outside of the grocery store. Like, and even there, I mean, I think about it all the time. Someone had said to me, it's easy for people to judge and assume what's happening. But in the reality, sometimes women with PCOS can be eating next to nothing. And because of the hormone imbalance, still are either gaining weight or unable to lose weight. And especially in that belly area.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I think it's just even for your non-PCOS listeners, that grace, that not assuming things are going the way that they are for other people is huge.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Especially like I talk about it all the time. I tend to now, and just started going back. I exercised at home. I exercised with friends, but you wouldn't catch me in a gym, because you know how many times I had caught rude looks from people at the gym. And I was like, I'm here trying to do the thing.
Right.
And that's a problem too. You know what I mean? So I think just kindness for people across the board, PCOS or not, right? That always goes such a huge way, because you never really know what someone's going through or dealing with. And I've been one of those people who were eating next to nothing, and the weight still didn't come off for me. And it was until I learned how to balance hormones with food and adjust medications and work out for certain time frames that then I saw my body like actually being able to work at its highest function. But that took time.
It's just, yeah, that's so important though. You're right. We don't know what's going on with people. And I think it's always nice to be kind to people, because we all go through things, and a lot of them are hidden things. We can't assume.
Yeah. And I think it even just ties back to your entire premise and your podcast and everything that you do. Like, as much as someone could be going through PCOS, someone also could be going through loss. They could also be going through both. And it was something we talked about on our episode on my podcast. Sometimes we don't have to say something. I think people sometimes say the things they wish they didn't when they were just trying to say something. And it's like, actually, sometimes people don't need you to fix it for them. They just need you to be kind.
Mm-hmm.
A smile goes a really long way.
It does. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you can just be like having the worst day and somebody just gives you a smile, and it's like, oh, okay, like that made everything not like better, but like a little bit better,
Like, oh, nice people. I love those. Like,
it's kind of sad when like a nice person makes your day, because there aren't as many nice people. Like,
yeah.
and I'm not saying they're not out there, but I'm just saying there's a lot of rude people too.
Oh, yeah, I think so too. And I think it can just be that rippling effect. I think sometimes it can be, well, someone was rude to you, so now you're in a mad mood, so you're rude to someone else, or you're so focused on the what ifs and the worry and the I don't know and the what other people are thinking. And I've done that. I've walked in a grocery store and been clicking through the list and the thing I got to do after the store, and I got to get here. I must look so frustrated and scowling because I'm just very straight faced. And I'm like, nope, we're going to let that go. And we're actually just going to smile at people.
Yeah.
And even that act of being like, nope, just smile. We're good. It's going to be all right. We're going to make it through, can sometimes just shift your entire mood.
Mm-hmm. It can. I remember one of my first jobs was working as a cashier at Whole Foods, and there'd be some really grumpy people that would come in. And sometimes I was grumpy too, because customer service, right? But other times I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be friendly, just gonna smile. And sometimes it just completely changed them. Like they're like, oh no, I am doing okay today. And like they would talk, and it would change the interaction completely.
Can I tell you something? One of my favorite things in the entire world is when I'm cashing out at a grocery store, before they have a chance to be like, thank you. You have a great day. I love being able to tell them to have a great day before they can tell me. Like, it's one of my, and most time they go, thanks, because they're the one that's trained to say it to me. And how many people just, because I did the same thing, said that and like they just walk away and they say, don't say anything.
Right.
I'm like, nope, we're actually going to be extra kind to this customer service rep.
I love it though. I always try to make it a point to, if they say it to me, I'll be like, you have one too, you know, like I try to at least like interact, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it makes all the difference sometimes, especially if you just had a grumpy customer.
Kindness really is underrated, but so powerful. Like people just don't, we forget it sometimes.
Yeah. And I think we forget too that it benefits us as much as it benefits them. I don't know how many times Mackenzie, my nutritionist I mentioned earlier, was like, you're carrying so much stress. We don't have to, it's okay. We're going to be, and like then when I can let go of things and just be like, nope, we're just going to let it be and we're going to be okay. I can feel my body relax, which is overall good for my hormone health.
So is there anything in particular, like any strategies you use to help you with that anxiety and to help like let things go?
I do. I went from making to-do lists to making, taking a few minutes at the end of the day and writing down all the things I completed. Because as an anxious person, I would make these impossible to-do lists and I'd never get through everything. And even though I knew in my brain that I could never, there's not enough hours in the day, I would focus on the stuff that didn't get done. So I just use my calendar and things are where they need to be, but I sit down at the end of the day and I go, oh, look at all the things that I was able to accomplish. How awesome is that? I understand that all food is just food. And as long as because I have certain goals I want to hit for protein and vegetables and, you know, things like that, hormones balancing food. But other than that, I just pair them with other things and taking the stress out of, well, how many calories are in that? Oh, that's too much that carbs there. When I took that away and was just like, you know what, I'm feeling a bagel, but we're going to have some protein with that. And we're going to have some eggs and maybe an apple. And I just ate balanced meals that I didn't have to carry this pressure for. It really helped me let go of the stress and anxiety. I think too, it's important to remember that I am a social worker. So I did a lot of schooling around psychology and that work. So I think I really just carry with me in every day that I know that, like you mentioned at the very beginning, everyone is going through something. So I give grace not to only other people, but I really make sure I give it to myself. And I take time every single morning to do something for me where I'm sitting still. Because with anxiety, I'm worried and I'm going and I'm doing and I'm stressing. I sit, I have a cup of tea, I journal. Sometimes I listen to a meditation. Like I have to do something still and just let myself be. And by setting my intention for the day that way, I'm able to approach life with just a whole new look.
I love that because I rarely sit still. I mean, it's harder with kids.
Say with your littles, yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I ever really take that moment to just sit down and like have that moment to myself. I'm always doing something. I feel like I always need to be busy. So I like that. I want to try to start like doing that.
I'm the same way. And I definitely don't want to say like it's perfect every morning. And that doesn't solve me having a bad day. Right? I mean, that happens, it's life. But on a really busy, sometimes I take that time in my shower. I take 3 minutes in my shower and I breathe and I let the hot water hit my back. I actually have these really cool like shower sticky notes. Almost when they get wet they stick to the wall, but they don't leave any like adhesion behind, and they have like motivational sayings on them. So if cool. I know, yeah, they're my favorite. When I know I'm gonna have like a crazy day and I can't sit, I shuffle those, pull one out, wet it, stick it to the wall. And sometimes I'll just read that a few times and think about whatever it says. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just fitting it in where it fits in. It could be during skincare. It could be during your shower. It could be in the pantry for 5 minutes while your kid's occupied doing something. You know what I mean? Like just finding a minute to be like, I'm here and I'm okay. And we're going to make it through.
So are there other things that you do that help you with any other PCOS symptoms that you deal with?
Yeah, so I think really trying to incorporate hormone balancing foods into my life has been really helpful. And that can look like broccoli, avocado, almonds, walnuts, lots of seeds like pumpkin seeds, flax seeds. Salmon has been one that like I for one reason just thought I was going to hate. And I actually really love salmon, and it was just like finding different ways to cook it. Exercising and hitting exercise goals have been huge for me. Um, and honestly, I cannot rave about Mackenzie enough. I think if you have been someone where you're not sure how to make those adjustments, whether you're PCOS, trying to get pregnant, are pregnant, and you're looking for someone to help guide you, she has been absolutely invaluable to me. And I will forever rave about her because like I said, I've never had someone be so knowledgeable, but also be able to treat me with such kindness. And there were many times where I'd be like, I'm going to do this. And she's like, take a breath. Not every day is perfect. You're doing all the right things. You're trying so hard. And I was like, I needed that. Like,
I
you
love
know,
that.
so I can absolutely, if that's something helpful for your pod info, I can drop her links because
Yeah,
she's so
definitely.
kind and she takes one-on-one clients and all the things.
Yeah, I think we definitely need more people like that that can treat you with compassion and kindness while still giving you guidance. And I know I tend to be that way too. I'm like, I'm all in, so then I try to do everything all at once. And then I'm like, oh, that's too much. So then I do nothing.
I get that. She also has really great handouts. They're actually, I'm not home, but they're on my fridge. I wish I had brought them with me. And they break down like different kinds of foods and how they work for hormone balancing. And like everything's laminated on my fridge. And my boyfriend's like, this is nice. And I was like, mind your business, it's fine. Because I'm able to now look at that and go, oh yeah, I want from this, and this. Perfect meal. I put it together and eat it.
I
And it's
love that.
yeah, it makes it really easy for me because it's so strange. I prep. I am so organized, like all the things in my life are organized and prepped, except for food, because I've now learned in this place where like, um, it's and something I learned from Mackenzie, it's intuitive eating. So my body now tells me what I need. And when I'm leaned in that way, I'm like, you know what? I do crave things like broccoli. I really want some kale salad, but I also crave a bagel. What? I really want some ice cream. And it just all comes, I kind of listen to what I need and I go look at this. I'm like, well, I want this, but I also need to hit these. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. And I make this well-rounded plate for every meal. So not planning that piece was like a shift for me, but it turned out to be so helpful because it gave me the freedom to just listen to my body.
And I love that approach because I hate the, like we talked about, it's all or nothing, like no dairy
Yeah.
or you just eat it all the time. But there's no like, okay, well, I can occasionally eat it and it will still be okay.
Yeah. And even stuff where like, I was like, oh, I love this is one of my favorites. And she said, totally hear that. Have you ever tried this? It actually like my milk. She was like, have you tried Fairlife milk? It has higher protein, it has all these things. It's really creamy. She's like, I think you should try it. I think you'd really like it. And it's actually going to give you milk and also give you a couple extra boosts of protein. So she has nice like swaps for things. So she's like, try it. And also one of her things like is flavor. It's one of her qualifications. If you don't like it, you don't eat it. Because we're not in the business of punishing ourselves. She's like, there's no food out there that has such like special magic in it that if you don't eat it, you can't get that from something else you actually do like. And that was so freeing for me.
I like her from, from everything that you're talking about.
Incredible. Because I think that's part of it, right? Like we have to eat. Well, they said this was good for PCOS, so I have to eat it, even though I hate it. Like there's so many things in life that are already so hard. I don't need food to be one of them.
And I like how you phrased it too, that we have no need to punish ourselves for it. Like we don't have to punish ourselves for having PCOS. Like nothing we did caused it. It's not our body's fault. It's not our fault. So don't make it, don't make it worse on yourself.
It's so true. And I think a lot of us feel that way. And I think that can come from different things in our own personal experiences, but it seems to be the genuine consensus. And I don't love that for us. And I really hope we can, over time, by having these conversations, really change that, because even when you're healed, you still hear it, right? I went on a trip a couple weeks ago and everyone around me was going, oh my gosh, I had pasta last night at dinner, so now I can only have this for breakfast. And I'm like, says who? So you had pasta. Okay. So, you know what I mean? Like, should we eat constantly only carbs? No, probably not. It's probably not the best choice. But also,
It's the tastiest though.
I mean, that's hard. But in my head, like, I had pasta too, but I also had a little bit of kale salad. I drank a lot of water. I did a lot of exercising, and I was like, it's okay. And of all the people who all stressed and I didn't, that I was the one that actually lost weight after that trip. And I wholeheartedly claim that too. Yes, the balancing of food, but also the lack of stress I put on myself about it. Because I wasn't anxious about it. I was like, we're okay. We're all going to be okay.
I think that's such a great mindset too. And it's something I want to work towards, but obviously it's hard, when you deal with stress and all that.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to, I want to say, like, I haven't always been this way. You know what I mean? Like, it was a lot of work. Mackenzie played a huge role. And I have to say, like, I see things so much more clearly now. But when we started the process, I was like, all my body wants is Doritos. Like, I don't know how I'm going to intuitively eat. Like, it just wants junk. And she was like, I'm telling you. And I was like, okay. And I leaned in and I was like, oh, so this is, okay. She's like, I told you. And I was like, yeah, you did. You did.
I love it. So is there any other advice for people you have, like, say someone who's newly diagnosed with PCOS?
Community. And it doesn't have to be like I have to go find a PCOS group on Facebook, though you could talk to the people around you. With 1 in 10, I guarantee you there is someone even if it's an acquaintance, that is also experiencing the same thing. Try not to be embarrassed. This is nothing you did. And just talk to people, explain how you feel. And being able to collaborate with people who have been going through the same thing and are okay is really fulfilling. Anytime I meet a mom who has PCOS, a little thing in me goes, see, it's not true. You can get pregnant. That has been so helpful to me. And I only know that because I've had conversations with people and we've talked about both having PCOS. Because a lot of the times I think too, like, if we look for bad, we only find bad. So if I went online, I could look up PCOS and find all the horror stories I ever needed to traumatize myself. But by having conversations and being open and real, I get to meet people like you were like, yeah, me too. And these are my incredible babies. You know what I mean? And I go, okay, I'm going to be all right.
I like that. Yeah, it's hard to not always find the negatives and everything, because you think of all the ways that affects you that are bad, but it doesn't, like we've been talking about, it doesn't have to all be bad all the time. And, you can learn to live with it. You can have kids with PCOS. It may take extra work. It may take extra planning, but it's not impossible.
Oh gosh, she's so cute. I can't even. It's so true, though. It is so true. And I think it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to, in my mind.
I did fertility treatment actually when I was trying to get pregnant at first. And I was actually doing acupuncture too. And acupuncture did wonders for me. Like I wasn't having regular cycles and it gave me a regular cycle. And I was like, really? I mean, you're just like putting needles in me.
I've never heard that. That's so cool.
Yeah, I was, going like 90 days without a cycle, all that. And then 2 months into doing acupuncture was ovulating regularly. It was the only thing I changed. Wasn't diet, wasn't anything. And I'm just like, I don't know how you did this, but this is amazing.
That's incredible. I have never heard that. I'm totally going to have to look into that. Because I think more and more women are realizing that they don't actually just have to take birth control. There is other options out there for them if they want them.
Yes, definitely agree. And actually the fertility treatment, most of the time it didn't work. I got pregnant on my own, like the cycle after. Like,
Yeah.
and then she was a complete surprise last year. So proof that you can still get pregnant naturally on PCOS too.
It's so true. It's so, so true.
Yeah. So I think what you said is really important, that having that community of other people that you can, rely on, that you can be like, I'm dealing with this. Has anybody else dealt with this? Like, you can get suggestions, you can get, good doctors like who actually listen to you. I mean, there's so many benefits.
I was gonna say, and the best, I think about it like this. The people I keep in my circle are people I trust. So when I can take suggestions from them, it doesn't guarantee it's going to work for me, but it gives me a starting place. I try it. Maybe it works. Maybe that's okay. I'll talk to somebody else. You know what I mean? It's very, I don't ever try to put all of my eggs in one basket when it comes to PCOS, because everyone's body is different and everyone's hormone imbalance. It's just, everyone is different. So it's never foolproof, but being able to talk to the people you trust just feels like a good idea for life, let alone PCOS. And the best relationships are the ones where we can be open and honest with people.
And I think that's an important point you make too, that, PCOS is not a one size fits all thing, that we all have different symptoms, all different imbalances, all different everything. So it's not like there's one way to treat it.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so very true. And I think, and I've been there, right? We want the solution, we want the answer. I remember my parents asked me a couple of years ago, they're like, well, like, how do you cure it? Like, what do we, and I was like, we don't. And she went, you're going to have this forever? And I said, yeah. And that was hard as a parent. I'm assuming, I mean, by her face, it was clearly hard to hear, but also it was hard for me to have to say that out loud. And once I went, yeah, this is part of who I am. It's a small piece of who I am. It gave me the freedom to go, all right, we're going to try stuff. We're going to figure out what works for me. And it was so much of a lighter carry when I viewed it that way. And when I gave a little bit to other people to carry, because I was having those conversations.
I think that's super important. And, family, well, most families, I think you can, rely on them to be there to support you through things like that. So I think it's important to let them know what's going on, even though it's hard.
Yeah. And I think even having those conversations sooner and letting them understand how you feel helps with the gaps of, like, say that we do have loss. If people didn't know how you were feeling throughout that process, it's even harder for them to gauge the reaction you're having now. Say you have a third not pregnancy test. You're feeling, people are like, why are they can kind of get why you're upset, but if they haven't understood throughout the process, it's harder for them to see all the pieces align. You're seeing this whole trajectory of what happened, and they're seeing the end because it was the hardest part that happened. So it just really helps open people up to what you're feeling so they can support you in a way that is actually the way that you want and need.
I'm finding, especially as I get older and deal with, she just dropped the remote. I find, as I'm getting older and dealing with more things, that communication comes up a lot, that communication is really like the key to a lot of things.
It is so, so true. And I think people don't realize that all the time. And I think we're not always taught to talk about these things and share our feelings and medical but with the more that I've experienced and the more that I've seen my clients experience and my community experience, I have never gone wrong by sharing how I feel with the people I trust the most. And that doesn't mean people don't make mistakes or hurt me, but it's all a learning lesson, and it's all life experience for me.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. So if people wanted to find more information about you, where would they go for that?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok for Trust M Collaborative. We have a really awesome all women's community where we talk all things fashion, motivation, self-care. And I also will push one more time for Miss Mackenzie in case anyone's looking for a really good nutritionist. You can find her on Instagram, fertility prenatal dietitian. Absolutely wonderful. And probably the best place to connect with us is probably Instagram because we're growing over there.
And you have your podcast as well?
Oh, yes, of course. And anything on my IG will link you back to our podcast, which is going to be the Trust M podcast. You can actually see my interview with Sarah over there if you guys haven't checked it out. That will actually be going up this week. When are we releasing this one? It's actually, I can give you just the date. That's probably easier. Sarah's interview with me goes up on October 8th. So
exciting.
No, I can't wait. So
I
yeah,
always love when we get to have like two conversations like on and switch like off the podcast. I just feel like
we
like really get to know people.
Absolutely. I think it's the best. And I think we had totally different conversations too, which is cool.
Well, I want to thank you. Oh,
oh yeah, I just wanted to say, and if you are someone who's like, I really wanted to find community with someone with PCOS, but I'm not sure, please feel free to message me. I am an open book. I am definitely open to having conversations with people. So if you're like, I wish I had someone around me, I feel like I don't, shoot me a DM. We're officially friends.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me today.
Of course, anytime. I feel like it's so important. I appreciate you inviting me.
Thank you so much, Emily. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. I hope that this conversation helped you have hope if you are also dealing with PCOS. We don't have to let it be our identity. Yes, it does affect many areas of our life, but we're so much more than our PCOS. It's far too easy to cut out all the enjoyable things in life because we think we should to manage our symptoms. But that comes at a price. It can really affect our mental health. And I think the key here, as usual, is to do things in moderation. We don't have to stop doing the things that we enjoy completely. We don't have to stop eating the things that we enjoy, 100% of the time. But we can try new things, and we can add new healthy things into our life, and we may find something that we enjoy equally that's better. As Emily and I talked about, try to find new positive things to add into your life instead of focusing on the things that you have to eliminate. Find the joy in your life and the things that make you happy. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, please leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a moment and really helps the show reach more loss and infertility families. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.